Hey, what's up? In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can get started in Unreal Engine 5 as a complete beginner that just wants to get into the engine and start making games. In this video, I'm going to be providing a step-by-step guide on getting started with your first game. What you see on the screen now is the game we're going to be creating in this video. It's a simple arcadey game, but it's always easy to add more gameplay elements and update the graphics of the game later. There are timestamps in this video, so you can pause it and come back to it at any time. Shout out to Brackley's, that's where I got the idea for this video. To get started, you're going to want to install Unreal Engine 5. If you already have Unreal Engine 5 installed, you can skip this part of the video. You can install Unreal Engine by going to unrealengine.com, and then you want to click this download button, and you may have to fill in a few instructions, although this will download the Epic's Game Launcher. Once you've downloaded the Epic's Game Launcher, open it up and it should look something like this, and you just want to go to library, and then if you don't have Unreal Engine version 5 installed, just go to add engine versions here and install Unreal Engine 5. Once you've installed it, you can go to the top right and change this to be Unreal Engine 5 and click the launch button. Once you've launched Unreal Engine, it will open up the Unreal project browser, and if you have any previous projects, you can easily open them here. If you don't though, you can go to the game section and we can create a new games project. For this tutorial, we're going to start on the third person template, so just select it. And then if we go to the bottom, just make sure that starter content is checked. And we just want to name our project Cube Game. Once we've done this, we can just click the create button and it will open up this project. Once your Unreal Engine project loads, you should see these three tabs. This first tab is the viewport tab and allows us to visually see everything inside of our level. The second tab is the Outlier tab and will display every single item inside of our level. So if I just select this cube, we can see it becomes highlighted in the Outlier tab, and if I just double click on anything inside of this Outlier tab, it will zoom me into it. And this final tab is the Details panel tab, which will show us all the information about the item inside of our level and also allows us to change some of the settings. Although in this video, we're going to be creating our own level from complete scratch, so in order to do that, we want to go to the file and then select new level and then just select the basic and then click create. Once we're here, we want to save this level. In order to do that, just click the save icon and then it's going to ask us where we want to save the level. Just select the third person and then the maps folder and just call this level 1. Now, in order to test out and play your game inside of Unreal Engine, you just want to click this little play button and it will play us in the current level. So right now we start off as this third person character, although we're going to change this to be our own original character. First off, we want to be able to control where we spawn our player character. In order to do that, we want to go to add, and this little add button allows us to quickly add bits and bobs to our project. We want to look for basic and then select player start. And this little player start will allow us to determine exactly where in the world we want our player to start at. So we can just select this and then use these arrows to move where we want our player character to start. So if I wanted my character to start here, I just move it here, and now if I go play, my character will spawn there. The next thing we need to do is change it so that our player character is not this mannequin that we see, but a cube. So in order to do that, we can just go to this content drawer, and this will open up all the folders inside of our project. And we just want to go to content, and then right click, and let's create a new folder, and let's just call this cube. And if we double click and head inside this folder, so now we're ready to create our cube character. In order to do that, if we just right click, select blueprint class, and we want to select a pawn. So a pawn blueprint is a blueprint which can be possessed and controlled by our player character. So select this, and we just want to call this BP underscore cube. Once we've done this, just double click and open up the blueprint. And we want to go to the Components tab. This allows us to add meshes, collisions, and cameras to our blueprint. The first thing we're going to do is add a cube mesh. To do that, go Add, and select a cube. With the cube selected, just go Add, and look for Spring Arm. And with the Spring Arm selected, go Add, and look for Camera. So now we've added a camera to our cube, and our idea here is this camera will allow us to get a third-person view of our cube. I currently don't like the angle that my camera is at, so in order to change it, I can select my spring arm, and we can play around with this target arm length value if we want to change how close or far the camera is going to be. I'll just change mine back to 300 though. And if I just select the spring arm and select the select and rotate objects, I can rotate my camera so that it has a different angle. And once you're happy with the angle that you've aligned your camera with your cube, just go compile and click save. Now, the next thing we're going to do is replace it so that when we play the game, we start as our cube character instead of this third person character. There are two main ways that we can use to achieve this effect. The first way is to go to Window and then go to the World Settings, and we're going to create a new game mode, and that game mode is going to spawn in our cube character where our third person character would be. So if I go to my content drawer and just right click here and go Blueprint Class and select Game Mode Base and just call this Cube Game Mode. And if I double click and head inside here, and under default pawn class, if we just change this to be our BP underscore cube and go compile and save. Now under my world settings, if I change my game mode override to be the cube game mode that we just made and go save and go play, I'm now going to start the game as my cube character. Now when we play the game, we are my cube character instead of that third person character. Although there's one problem, we can't move. So if I just close this and open up my content drawer and go to my BP cube, if we just select it and then go to the details panel, if we look for simulate physics and just check this box and go compile and save, now when I click the play button game, I'll be this cube and it'll start simulating physics. Our cube is still a bit boring. We're going to add some forces so that our cube constantly moves forward. So if we open up our content drawer and go back to our BP cube, we want to head over to the event graph. And in the event graph, here's where we write some nodes which will allow our cube to perform certain events. So just delete these two nodes at the bottom, and we're going to use this event begin play node. And the way this node will work is as soon as the game starts, it's going to run this node. So if I just drag off here and typed print string and go compile, now if I go play, as soon as the game starts, it'll print string the word hello in the top left corner of the screen. Then if we delete this, we're now going to write some nodes which will allow our cube to constantly move forward. So drag off event begin play and look for the set timer by event node. For this, we just want to check looping, and for time, just make this 0.1 seconds. And if I just drag off this event and look for add custom event and just call this move cube. Now, event begin play is going to run this node, and this will run every 0.1 seconds because we've checked this looping box. If I didn't check this looping box, this would only run once after 0.1 seconds. So make sure this is checked. Now we're going to write some nodes which will allow our cube to move forward. Let's just select our cube and drag it into our event graph. And just drag off here and look for add impulse. And connect this move cube to here. And just right click on this impulse and look for split structure pin. Now if I just close this and go to my player start and go to the details, we can currently see that to move our cube forward, we need to move them forward in the x-axis. So if I just select this and move it forward, we can see it moves forward in the x-axis. So that's going to be the direction that we're going to be launching our cube. To control the value of how far we impulse our cube, we're going to use a variable. To create a new variable, just go here and go add, and let's just call this variable forward force. And go compile. So in Unreal Engine, there are many different types of variables. This variable is a Boolean variable, and with Boolean variables, we can determine whether a thing should be true or false. Although for this example, we just want to change this variable to be a float. A float variable can contain any number with a decimal. So now if I go compile, and if I just change this value to be 100, and just drag in this forward force, and look for get forward force, and now we're going to be able to reference the number inside of this variable. And if we just hook this up to the x-axis and go compile, and when we're adding impulses inside of Unreal Engine, Just make sure to check val change, otherwise the impulse value is kind of weak. So now if I go compile, close this and go play, when I start the game, my cube is going to be given a force of 100 units in its x-axis every 0.1 seconds. If I head back to my cube, I can change this value to be something like 500, and he's going to move even more fast. So I just close this, go back to play. When I start the game, you can see my cube's moving super fast. If we head back to our cube and go to our BB cube, there's an easier way for us to keep testing and changing the value of this float variable. If I just select it and change it to be instance editable and go compile and just close this, I'm just going to select my player start and delete this, and instead we can just drag in our cube, and in order to make it so that I start the game as this specific cube, we can go to our details panel and scroll down, and under auto possess player, change this to be player 0, and now we're going to start the game as this specific cube. Now that we've done this, we can see there is this default value, and here, because we made this forward force variable instance editable, we can change the value of this variable right here in the detail section. So there were a couple of issues with our cube. Let's go over how to fix them now. The first issue, if I click the play button, it looks really blurry at the bottom. In order to fix that, if we go to edit and project settings and look for motion blur, and just make sure this is unchecked, and now we go play, that should fix that issue. The next issue we have is our cube kind of rotates and looks a bit weird. So in order to fix that, if I go into my cube and we just select it, and we want to scroll down and look for constraints, we just want to lock its rotation in the Y and the Z. And now if I just compile and save, my cube shouldn't like skate along the surface of the floor. So I'm just going to go play, and now my cube just stays forward, which is exactly what we want. The next thing I want to fix with my cube is I think the camera is a bit too close, so I'm just going to go back to my cube and to the spring arm, and I'm just going to make this 400. With our cube, in order to make it even more frictionless when it's sliding along a surface, we can just select our cube and scroll down, and under linear damping, just change this to be 0. The higher this value, the more like friction it's going to have when it goes along the surface. And there's one more thing we can do in order to make the surface that the cube slides along as frictionless as possible, and that is by creating a physics material. So if we go to our content drawer, and if we just right click and go physics and select physics material, and if we just call this our cube physics material, and if we open it up, under friction, just change this to be a value of 0 and save this. And then if we select our floor surface, and in the search, if we look for physics and scroll down, here we can select the physics material that we want it to have, and we just want to change this to be the cube physics material. That way our floor is going to be as frictionless as possible. So if we go play, our floor is now very frictionless. It only made a slight difference, although I thought I'd just cover how to do that. Next, let's go over how we can make it so that we can move our cube to the left and to the right. If we just go to our content drawer and open up our cube, in the event graph, if we right click and look for input, move right / left. So we want this one, input axis event, move right / left. And I just want to show you something. If I just drag off here and look for print string and hook this up to the axis value and go compile and I'll go play. If I press the D button, we can see this value becomes 1. If I press the left button, we can see this value becomes -1. So we can use that value to move our cube to the left and to the right. So to achieve that effect, I'm just going to delete these nodes, and I'm going to drag off here and look for add impulse to cube, and then on impulse we just want to right click and look for split structure pin, and we just want to drag off this axis value and look for multiply, and here we're going to create a new variable which will control the value of how much we move to the right or left. So I'm just going to go add new variable and call this move right / left force. I'll compile it, and let's give this a default value of 50, and also make it instance editable so we can easily change it inside of our game, and just hook this up here. And we just want to connect this node to the Y, as this will control our cube's movement in the Y axis. And now if I go compile and play. If I press the D button, whoops, so I forgot to add the velocity change. And we just want to make sure that we check this vel change and go compile. And now if I click the play button, if I press the D button, my cube moves to the right. If I press the left button, I'll just do that again. If I press the left button, my cube moves to the left. So maybe I made that force a bit too big. So I'll just change that to be, let's say 10. And now I go play. I can move my cube to the left and to the right. Next, I want to change how my level looks. So we're going to change our floor material to be a different color. To do that, if we just select our floor and then go to the details panel and head to materials, we can change the color of our floor's material here. I'm just going to change it to be the basic shape material. So we just look for that and select it. And now our floor will be white. And I'm also going to change the color of my cube. So if we just select it, and we can also go to the outlier tab and just go edit BP cube to open up its blueprint. And I'll just go to the viewport and select the cube and change it to be red. Because we enabled that starter content, we have some starter materials inside of our project. So let's just make our cube this red color. And I'm also just going to select my spring arm and make it so it's a bit further away from my cube. So I'm going to make this 550. And now we go compile and save. And there's one more thing I want to do with my level. We're going to make it so this floor is a bit thinner. To do that, if we just select the floor and then go to the select and scale objects, and just let's scale our floor down in the y-axis. If you want more precision over the scaling of an object, what we can do is go over here, and if say I made this 10, every time I scale my floor, it's going to move by 10 units. That's a bit too much, so I'm just going to make mine this and then scale my floor about this size. And I go save and play. I'll actually make my floor just a bit thinner, and then I think I'll be happy with that. The next thing we're going to do is add some obstacles that our player character is going to have to avoid while they're controlling their cube. So to do that, let's go to our content drawer and to our cube folder and just right click, look for blueprint class, select actor, and let's just call this BP obstacle. And then if we double click and open it up, inside this BP obstacle, let's go add and add a cube. And let's make this cube gray. So under elements, just look for gray. And we also want this cube to simulate physics. So in details, I'm going to look for simulate and just check this simulate physics. And I don't want this obstacle to look exactly like my cube. So I'm just going to scale it in the X and the Y. And we'll make it kind of a bit thick. I think that's good. So if we just go compile. And I'm just going to drag my obstacle into the world. So it's a bit small, so I think I'll make it just a bit bigger. If you want to scale something evenly and proportionally, if we just check this anchor icon, and if say I make this value 1, it's going to scale my cube proportionally by all these units. So just do that if you want to keep the scale of your object uniform. Okay, so I think I'm happy with that. And the idea here is we're going to make it so that when the player character hits this cube, they'll lose control of the cube character that they're playing as. So in order to achieve this effect, what we can do is open up our BP cube and go to the event graph. And if we just select our cube, we can scroll down, and here at the bottom we have some events. We just want to click on this on component hit. And on component hit, if we hit this cube, then we're going to disable our character's movement. So if I just drag off this other actor and look for cast to BP obstacle, and when this happens, I will stop my player character from moving. In order to achieve that, let's create a new variable and just call this can move question mark, and just compile and make sure this is checked. And event begin play, we're only going to move our cube if this Boolean variable is true. So we just drag this in and look for get can move, and just drag off here and look for branch. So if this can move variable is true, then we will continue to move our character. If this is false, then it's just going to do nothing. We want to copy this again and paste it here. Again, if this can move variable is true, then we'll be able to move our character to the right or left. If this is false, then we won't. And if we hit a cube, then we're just gonna set this can move to be false. So now I go compile. So now if I go play and I hit this cube, I can still move. So you're probably wondering why you can still move after you hit the cube. And that is because we need to change a couple of things inside of our cube. So this on component hit will only work when, say, this cube hits another blocking actor. Our cube currently is hitting another blocking actor, although I found that the default cube doesn't have any collision. So if we go here to this browse to cube, this will open up the static mesh of the cube. And we just want to go to collision and just go add any one of these simplified collisions. And we can see it will add this collision around our cube. Then if we head back to our BP cube, we just want to select it and scroll down and just check this simulate generate hit events. So just check that and go compile. And now this node should work. So if I go play, if I hit my cube, after I hit my cube, I can't move. As you can see, I also halted to a stop. If we head back to our cube, we currently make it so that when we hit this specific obstacle, we make it so that our cube stops moving. Although, let's say you wanted to add more obstacles, there's a more flexible method that we could use. So we just delete this. And currently, we can just drag off this other actor. And if we just look for has tag, and if we just drag off here and look for branch, and just hook this up to here, we can make it so that if we hit another obstacle and it has the tag which says obstacle, then we'll stop our player character from moving. So I'll just hook this up to true. And this way you can make many different types of obstacles if you'd like to do that. So to give actors tags, we just need to head inside their blueprint, select the BP obstacle itself, and under details, look for tag. And then we should see this here. Just click this little add element button. And then if I just give this the tag obstacle and go compile and save, if I go play, now when I hit this cube, I stop moving. But now let's say you created another blueprint which had a different shape. You could just give it the obstacle tag, and if the player character hits it, they'll stop moving. The next thing we're going to do is go over how to design a level inside of Unreal Engine. Before we do that though, I want to show you the different ways we can view a level. The first way we can view a level is in unlit mode. So we go here and just change this to be unlit. In unlit mode, everything's going to have no shadows, and this mode kind of makes it a bit easier for Unreal Engine to run on your project. So if you're using kind of an old laptop or a laggy one, this will help. The next type of mode we have is wireframe, and like the name suggests, it will allow us to view everything from a wireframe perspective. As well as having different ways we can view a level, we can also view our level from different perspectives. So if I go here and change this to be top and just zoom out, I'm also going to just change this to be wireframe as it's a bit more helpful. And now we're going to be able to view our level as if we were on top of it. And you may want to design your level from here. So I can just select a cube and press Alt, and that will duplicate the cube, and I can just move it around. We can also view our level from the bottom, so just the opposite of the top, or from the right, or from the front or back. Not really helpful with those modes, but you can just pick a way that you want to view your level. I'm just going to change my back to perspective. And now we're ready to design our level. One thing when we're designing our level, just change your cube to be 0 in the x-axis. And I'm just going to drag my cube and scale it down a bit. Quick tip, if you want to select multiple objects at once inside of Unreal Engine, just hold the shift button and select the objects you want to move. When you've got all of them, you can just use this arrow to move them together. And now I'm just going to place some cubes along my level. Okay, so I think I'm happy with this level. I've placed some cubes that my player will need to avoid. Also, one thing, if I go off this world, okay, so it didn't happen that time, but if my cube falls off the world like this, the camera will also start to rotate with him, and it looks kind of weird. In order to fix that, if we just go back to our cube blueprint and under the spring arm, just uncheck all of these boxes, and this will make it so that when our cube rotates, our camera will not rotate with it. So now if I go play and try and do that, my camera won't rotate with my cube when he starts to rotate off the world. Also, another quick tip. If you just select any object in your world outlier and press F, it will take us to exactly where it is inside of the world. Hello! Next, in order to make our level look a bit cooler, let's add some fog to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just delete these volumetric clouds, as I don't like them. And then if we select the experimental height fog, there's already some fog inside of our level, but let's just increase it. So if we go to fog density and just make this 1, you can see things are a bit foggier. And just go to the fog height fall off and make this 0. And let's go play. Okay, we can see our level is quite foggy. Next, you may want to change the color of your fog. To do that, just select the sky atmosphere, and under ray light scattering, just change the color of this. So I made this like red, then I'm gonna have a red fog. And then the final thing we're going to do is just go to add and look for visual effects and select a post-process volume. And under search, just look for infinite and just check this. This will make the post-process volume effect everywhere in our level. And then we just want to look for brightness and just check this min and max brightness. And I think I'll use the value 1 for min brightness and 3 for max brightness. And let's just go play. And I think that looks pretty decent. You can change around the settings of this. So I think the higher this value, the darker it's going to be. So I made this 3. Things look a bit darker. And one final thing, if you want your camera to kind of have like this cool lag effect, just select your cube and under spring arm, scroll down and just enable this camera lag and go compile. And this will make the camera look kind of smoother. So I go play. The camera looks just a bit kind of like smoother and a bit cooler. Hello, the next thing we're going to do is add some UI, which is going to show the player character's score. To do that, if we go back to our content drawer, just right click and go user interface and select a widget blueprint. Select this user widget and just call this BP, actually call this WB for widget blueprint and just call this score. And we double click and hit inside here. First thing we're going to do in our palette is look for a canvas panel and just drag this into the WB score. Then we want to look for some text. And just drag this, say, into the middle, the top middle of your screen. And also just anchor it to the top middle of your screen. Here we can determine what the text is going to say. So let's just make this say score for now. And you can change the color of the text here. So maybe I want it to be red. But I'm just going to leave it at white. And we can change the size of the text by going here under font and changing the size. So maybe I'll make it 60. Actually, I'll make it 90. And currently you can see right now we have this font, which is Roberto. If you want to add your own font, go to any font website. So I think I'm on 100,001 through fonts.com and just download any font you want. Once you've downloaded your font, it should be in this TTF format, true type font file. And once you have this, just drag this inside of your Unreal Engine project. So I'm just going to go to Window and select Content Browser. And this will make my content browser permanently pop up here. And I'll just drag my font to this folder. So I'll just drag this blazed font here. And then just click yes. And this will install the font inside of your project. So now if I just go to font family and change this to be the blaze font that I install, my font will now change. So you can just do that if you want to have your own custom font inside of your projects. I'll just change mine back to the default one because I like it. In order to make this display on our player's screen, if we go back to our BPQ blueprint and on event begin play, what we're going to do is just drag off here and look for create widget. The widget that we're going to create is going to be the WB score, so it's here. Then we just want to drag off here and look for add to viewport and just hook this up here. And then I'll just connect this into here. And now if I go compile and save, when my game starts, it should show me my score Next, we're going to make it so that our score actually displays a number. If we just open up our BP cube, in order to do this, if we just right click and look for event tick, and the way event tick will work is every single frame is going to run this event. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag it in our cube and we're going to get its world location. So we look for get world location and just right click and look for split structure pin. And we're going to get wherever our cube is in the x-axis, and this will be our score. We're going to keep our score on a variable. So we just go to create new variable and just call this score. And we actually want this variable type to be an integer. The reason we're making this score variable an integer and not a float is because integers only contain whole numbers, whereas floats can contain decimal places. So we just drag in our score and look for set score, and then drag from the x into the score. This will convert our float into an integer. And then if I just hook up event tick into the score and go compile, then if we open up our widget blueprint, we want to head over to the event graph and we want to find this node event construct. This will run as soon as our HUD is displayed to the viewport. And what we're going to do is just right click and look for get player pawn. This will allow us to reference the current pawn that the player is playing as. And because we're going to be playing as the cube, we can drag off here and look for cast to BP cube and just hook this up. And then we can right click on here and promote this to a variable and go compile. And now if I go to my designer and select my score, we can bind this text to our player character score by going bind, selecting this cube, and then selecting the score. And now if I go compile, save, and go play, we can see that my score increases. It's increasing quite a lot and very fast. So what I did in the last project, I think I just divided this value by 100. So we just look for divide and then make this 100 and hook this up here and go compile and save. And I'm actually just going to go here and go new editor window, just so that way it looks full screen and we can see my score slowly increasing. Hello. Next, we're going to make it so that when the player hits an obstacle or if they fall off the world, it will restart the level. So if we open up our BP cube and go to where we set up the bit where if our player hits an obstacle that they can't move, after we do this, we're going to have a delay. So we just look for delay and just right click and promote this to a variable and call this restart delay, and also make this instance editable. And after this restart delay, we'll just compile and make this 1 second. Then what we're going to do is look for get current level name, and then we can just drag up here and look for open level by name and hook up this return value into here. And then if I go compile and play, if say I hit this cube, after 1 second it will restart the level. Next, in order to make this like volume where if the player character falls off the world, they will instantly die, we can go to our cube folder, right click, go to blueprint class, select an actor, and just call this kill volume, and double click and open it up. And then we just go to add component and look for box collision. And I'm just going to expand it. We can also expand it outside of this blueprint, but we'll just expand it here. And if I go compile, save this, and just so I can see everything a bit better, I'm going to actually go to wireframe, drag in my kill volume, and make sure I position it below everything. And let's just rotate and expand this so it covers our whole level. And then what we'll do if the player character overlaps this, if we actually head over to the BP cube, just right click and look for add custom event and call this restart level and hook this up to the delay. And we go back to our kill volume and just select it and scroll down and go on component begin overlap. Of this other actor, we can check if it's the cube by going cast to cube. And if it is, then we can call the restart level node that we made inside of our BP cube. And now if I go compile, close this, and I'll just go back to lit. And let's say play the game and fall off the world. After 1 second, it will respawn me. So nice, with that we've made a respawn. Next, we're going to create an end level volume. And the idea here is when the player character overlaps this volume, it will take them to the next level. So to create this, if we right click and go blueprint class, select actor and just call this end level volume. If we open it up and go add and look for a box collision, and if we just expand this, and with it selected, if we scroll down and go on component begin overlap, if this other actor, if we can cast to the BP cube, which means our cube overlap this, then we're going to drag up here and look for delay. With a delay, which we'll right click, promote it to a variable and call it open level delay. And we'll also make this instance editable. And for now, let's just make this 1 second. And after 1 second, we're going to open a level. So just drag up here and look for open level by name. And just right click and promote this to a variable, which will be called level name. And we'll make this instance editable. And we go compile, close this, and let's just place this here. And I'll just expand it up a bit. So when we overlap this box, it will take us to another level. Let's create another level by going to our maps. And if we just copy level 1 and then paste it again, and right click and rename this level 2. And we just head inside here, save everything, and we'll make this level 2 by just removing the first 2 blocks here. And if I go back to level 1, save this, and in here, if I make this level name say level 2, if I save and go play, if I reach the end and hit this box, it should take me to level 2. Okay, so I hit the box, and then after 1 second, it's taken me to level 2. So this box works, although it's a bit boring when we go to level 2. So what we're going to do is create a level win screen, which will display when we beat level 1. So if we head back to our cube folder, right click and go user interface, select widget blueprint, and let's just call this WB level win screen. And if we head inside here, we want to go to the palette and look for a canvas panel. And then we want to look for an image. And just select this image, and under anchor, select this bottom right one. And if we just change everything to 0, we'll make this image cover the whole screen. Then we're going to look for a vertical box. And just place this somewhere in the middle of the screen. And we also want to anchor it to the middle of the screen. And then we want to look for some text and place 2 pieces of text inside of the vertical box. By default, we can't see any of the text because text is white by default. So for this first text, just change it to be a gray color. And for the second text, just make it black. And for this first text, we're going to make it say level in all caps. And then the second text, we'll make it say complete in all caps. And in order to center the text, just select it and then select this little center button for both of them. And we also want to do this for complete. And I'm just going to make both of these text a bit bigger. So let's say 70. And I'll make this 100. And I'll just expand my vertical box a bit. And I'm just going to change this text to be light and actually increase it to 90. With widgets, we can also create some animations. So we're going to create an animation with this widget. To do that, just click this animations button and then go add new animation, and we can just leave this as new animation. Select it. Then we want to go to track, and the first thing we're going to track is this image. So image 50 is this white image that we added, and we just want to track its opacity. So we go track, and we want to select render opacity. At the start, we want this to have a render opacity of 0 so that we can't see it. And just click this little add icon and that will track that. Then we just want to drag this little line and place it around 1 second. And if we just drag this to the 1 second mark, at 1 second, we'll then make this have a render opacity of 1, and then click add. And now if I drag the slider, over the course of 1 second, it will make my white image fade into this widget. Next, we're going to track the render opacity of our text. So if we just select it and go back to animations and go track, and we actually just want to track the vertical box because our text is inside of this vertical box. And if we go track and again select render opacity, we want this to be 0 here, and we also want this to be 0 at 1, then around 130. So around 135, we just change this to be 1 and then click add. At 135, we'll make our text appear. So the animation we're going to have is first our white screen will fade in, and then our text will fade in. And this will take 1.35 seconds to complete. In order to make this animation appear when our widget is on the screen, if we go to our graph and event construct, we just want to look for play animation. Then if we just select this new animation under our animations tab and just hook this up here and go compile. Now if we go to our end level volume, before our delay, I'm just going to create a widget, and this widget is going to be the WB windscreen that we just made. We'll add this to the viewport, and then we will have a delay, and I'm actually just going to change this default value to be at least 1.7 seconds. That way we can see our animation. Then we'll open the level. So now I go compile, save this, close, and let's test this all out. So if I just play my level, when I reach the end, my windscreen will fade in, I'll say level complete, and then it'll take me to level 2. So nice, now we've made it so that when we beat a level, we go to another level. Let's go to level 2, and I'm just going to make it a bit harder, and I'm actually going to change it to unlit, so it's a bit easier to see, and we can just place some different blocks in a different pattern in level 2. And then we're going to create one final level, so I'm just going to press Ctrl C on level 2 and Ctrl V, and just rename this to be level 3. And we open up level 3. Let's just give this a different pattern. Okay, so now we've designed the 3 levels for our game. If you wanted to, you could add more and more. But let's go over how we're going to design a final windscreen level when the players be in all the levels in the game. So to do that, let's just right click and create a new level and just call this win screen. And if we double click and head inside here and go save, we're just going to make this windscreen level display a widget which says you've won the game. Next, if I click the play button, we'll be able to faintly see our third person mannequin character. And if I press F2 just to change the shading model, we'll see that we are the third person mannequin character when we're inside this level. And that's because we started this project in the third person template. However, in levels such as our end screen level, we don't want the player character spawning at all. So in order to fix this, we can right click, create a new blueprint class, and we're going to create a new game mode. And let's just call this title game mode. And now if I go to my world settings and change this game mode override to be the title game mode and go play, no character will spawn, which is exactly what we want. Now we're ready to create our windscreen UI. So if we double click, open it up, and in the palette, if we look for a canvas panel and just drag this in. Next, if we look for an image and just drag this into the canvas panel, and let's just anchor our image to the whole of our screen. Then in our palette, if we look for a vertical box, and again, I'm going to anchor this to the middle of my screen. Next, we want to add 3 pieces of text. Then if we select all of our text, because they're all white, if I just select this color and opacity and change this to be black, all my text will be black. This first text, we're going to make it say thanks for playing. So if I go here and just change this to be thanks for playing. And I'm just going to anchor this text to the middle of my screen. So here under horizontal alignment, just check this middle button. And then let's make it a bit bigger. So make it 90. And I'll also just make this light and change the color slightly. And we just move our vertical box so that's a bit wider. Now, with our text, there's not really a gap between each of our text. If you want there to be more of a gap, what we can do is go to padding. And if I make the padding here in the bottom, say a value of 50, it's going to push everything below this 50 units down. So I make this, let's say 100. The gap will be even bigger. I think I'll leave this at 300 though. And for this next text, let's actually select both of them and move them to the center. And this first text, we're going to make it say made by. And then the second text here, just display your name. So I'll type in USCO. And I'll change this to be gray. And let's just increase the size of both of these. So for this first one, let's make it say 70. And for the second one, let's make this 60. And then the final thing we need to do is go to our palette, look for a button and drag this into our vertical box. And then look for some text and drag this text on top of our button. And if we just select our button and click this align horizontally, it'll make our button kind of look a bit more normal. And I'm just going to expand my vertical box. And in this text, let's just make it say the words quit. And make this a bit bigger. Let's say 50. And then we'll make it so that when the player clicks on this quit button, it will close the game. So if we just select this button, scroll down and go on clicked. When we click on this button, we will just quit the game. So now if I go compile, save this. And then if I open up this level blueprint, inside of each level, it can have its own blueprint. So we'll just go to open level blueprint and event begin play. We will create a widget, which will be the WB windscreen. And then we will add this to our viewport. And if I go compile, go play, we can see this screen which says thanks for playing, made by your name. And then if I click this quit button, it'll quit the game. Just going to move mine slightly here, yeah. Nice. Now we've created a windscreen. The next thing we're going to do is create a title screen. So to save time, we can just press Ctrl C here and Ctrl V to duplicate it. And just rename this to be our WB title. And if we double click and open it up, and here we'll make this text say welcome to. And if we just decrease the padding, so make it like 100. And here we'll type in the name of the game. So let's just call our game Cube Run or something like that. And we can make the text of this red. And we can just delete this text here. And between here and here, add a bit of padding. So let's say 100. Actually, let's add 30. And we'll make this say play. And when we click on this button, it will take us to level 1. So I just go on clicked. We can delete this node and instead look for the open level by name. And under level name, let's just type in level 1 and go compile and save that. And if we go to our maps and just duplicate this windscreen level with Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and just double click and open it up. And if we just rename this level title, inside of our title level blueprint, let's just change this to be our title screen and go compile. So now there's one more thing we need to do. If I click the play button and say I click my mouse, it will disappear. And also, you may have noticed, inside of level 1, 2, and 3, when we click our play button, in order for us to have control, we need to click our mouse button first, otherwise we can't control our cube. The way we fix that is by using input modes. So if we just head over to our cube character, and we want to go to the bit where it says event begin play, and event begin play, if we right click and forget player controller, and if we drag off here, we can look for set game input mode, and look for set input mode game only, then drag off here and look for set show mouse cursor, and just leave this unchecked, then connect these nodes. And now when the game starts, it will set our input mode to game only and it won't show our mouse cursor, so we'll no longer need to click our mouse in order to control our cube. So we'll go compile and save, and if I go play, I automatically start the game possessing my cube. Next, if we go to our title widget, we're going to do a similar thing here. So we'll right click and get our player controller. Although this time we're going to look for set UI, so set input mode UI only, and then we'll just drag up here and look for set show mouse cursor and leave this checked. That way it will show our mouse cursor. And if I copy this and also put this in the windscreen, and we'll just hook up the event constructor here and go compile and save. If I now go to my title map inside my project, save everything, it will show me the screen, welcome to Cube Run. I can click play. I will start the game in my cube level. I can move towards the right, towards the left, dodging cubes. If I reach the end, it will say level complete, take me to level 2. Then if I beat level 2, oh whoops, so in level 2, we need to make it take us to level 3. So if I go to my details, here we'll just make this say level 3. Then when we're in level 3, and if we beat it, we'll make this take us to the windscreen level. So here, if I select it and go windscreen, if I just click play on level 3 to test this out, so as we just saw, it said level complete, and then it'll say thanks for playing. It'll say made by, your name, and then if I click the quit button, it will close the project. So nice, well done. Now we've made a game. The final thing to do is export the game so we can share it with people and our friends. So in order to do that, if we go to edit, and you want to go to project settings, and you want to go to maps and modes, and under game default map, we just want to change this to be the map that we want the player to start in when they play our game. So we want to change this to be the title map. And then here under editor startup map, this is going to be the map that it takes us to when we load up this project. We just want to change this to be something like level 1. Or whatever level you want to start in when you open up this project. And now that we've done this, we can export our game. Next, in order to export our game, we need to make sure we have Visual Studios installed, and I think we need to install the game development with C++ in the Visual Studios installer. And when you install Visual Studios, you want to make sure that you go to individual components and that you have the net SDK installed. So if I just look for net here, you just want to make sure that you've installed this net.sdk. I didn't have this installed, and when I tried to export my project, it basically had nothing inside of it. And once you've done that, we can go to Platforms, then select Windows, and Package Project. Then select where you want to package the project on your desktop. Once you select the folder, it will begin packaging your project. So once your project's exported, it should be in this Windows folder and should display the name of our game, which we called Cube Game. If I double click and open it up, it will take me to my title screen. Welcome to Cube Run. I can click play and I can play my game, move left to right, and dodge some obstacles. So with this, we have created our game. That's all for this video. If you've made it this far, you may as well like, subscribe, and join my Discord. We have hundreds of other game devs there. And if you want the complete project files for this video, they'll be available on my Patreon. With that said, bye, and I'll see you guys next time.